Let
That's
me
right.
go ahead and turn on another light here so I don't look like a demon. Be back in like
Cool.
2 seconds.
While you're doing that, I'll get started and you can pick it up. So, yeah, like thanks, Stephen. I think a lot of people are familiar with Reaper. Reaper is just a traditional, like an LP auto compounder, nothing too crazy. But over time, it's becoming more and more of an integral part of the incoming, I guess, back end of this ecosystem. And so for users today, they can go to Reaper Farm, deposit an LP, and get a tax efficient, magical compounder that does all the hard work for them. But in the future, there's going to be more exciting strategies, or there already are some exciting strategies, which I'd love to detail if we do get the time, like the vVelo Vault, for example. But Reaper is going to be the back end of the entire system, really. It's the efficiency layer, it's the security layer. And so what does it do? It keeps the money safe and it moves the money around efficiently, really. That's what Reaper does. Granary is a peer-to-peer lending market. Its closest competitor would be like an Aave. And basically, I mean, Bebis would do it more justice, but the math has been tinkered with, and some new features have been added to make it a much more competitive environment, even without incentives. So users can get attractive rates for borrowing and for lending. Correct me if I'm wrong, Beavis, but Aave, do they have a 15% reserve?
Yeah, it ranges between 10 and 20, probably averaging 15. But yeah, ours is 1%. Granary is really like a marketing tool for the development work we're doing in the kind of money market vertical. So we've been really kind of investing energy into growing the Granary community so that, we can raise money and develop what we think is going to be the future of money market. So I'm probably going to glaze over that just for time reasons. I could talk about that probably for 2 hours. Um, we can maybe, dig into the specific questions, but
Yeah, there were some
Reliquary,
good questions about risk, but yeah, Reliquary. Go ahead, actually, Beavis, you'll
yeah,
smash
yeah.
it.
So Reliquary is a yield primitive we built, being kind of the stingy bastards that we are. We weren't willing to admit any incentives over 2021 because, mercenary capital was going crazy. The risk return was not good at all. So we built this app called Reliquary that without locking. So another big thing, we're against is forcing users to lock to receive yield. You can think of it like a perpetual floating rate bond um, whose convexity increases over time. So as your position ages, not only do you get like an NFT, you get like a bunch of cool composability features, um, but as it ages, you're going to be increasing your yield in a non-dilutive manner. So essentially, we're treating your underlying assets as being more valuable if you're a long-term LP. So that's the point of Reliquary, and you can withdraw and deposit assets on demand. It has a bunch of really cool, neat features. It's kind of the top of funnel for us for retail. Would you like me to get into Ethos at all, or Moon, Stephen, or we can
Oh, I'm in.
kind of kick that down over to
The
Byte?
short answer is yes, but I really want to talk more about Reliquary because of how fascinating it is. So, do you mind if we dig into that first and then we move on to Ethos and Moon? I mean, I know you guys have a lot of things that you want to
Yeah, yeah, not
announce,
at all.
but
Here, let me
there's so much that I'm interested in.
yeah, I'll pull up like a demo here. So we're in beta now, closed beta, unfortunately. But the point of Reliquary is to make finance approachable, fun, and build the best yield primitives there ever was. So kind of this is more skilled for mobile. We're working on the desktop version now, so I can like boom, I have a phone now. So essentially what you do is we have these NFTs that we generate on chain. So we create these on chain SVGs that we serve up to the user. So it reduces scamming, whatnot. Lovely feature. Um, but what these NFTs can do is how we have it set up is like half a day your yield goes up. At a day, your yield goes up. At 2 days, your yield goes up until the 2 week timeline. And of course, when this is live, the timeline's really going to be like a couple years. But imagine like, your typical farm just with a lot of super cool features that rewards you for being dedicated. So a cool thing about having a fully mature LP, so you can think of these like maturity tranches, is it will be much harder to dilute your position. So if you have a fully mature position, new entrants into the system aren't going to be taking very much of your yield. So it's much less volatile, and that's where the convexity comes from. So you know, the opportunity cost lowers over time, which is really really great. And we have all these cool positions. We have a dashboard. We're working on making all of this. Well, I like to say we're working on sexing it up, but we've got a lot of cool data that we're working on serving up. Um, and you know, we've got a lot of UI UX work to prettify everything. But yeah, that's kind of
Let me quickly add on,
the more
Bebis, that
mature.
each of those cards is an NFT, and you'll be able to actually, take that NFT. It stays in your wallet as, your LP position is abstracted to this NFT, and you'll be able to sell it on the marketplace. You'll be able to
Yeah.
use it in governance or other things
Take
of
out a
that nature.
loan on
So
it. Yeah, it's not just dead assets, and all the assets are earning real yield underlying as well. So, you know, it's really like it's like a tricked out, you know, Honda Civic. Or if, you know, you don't like cheap Japanese cars. It's like the Rolls Royce of crypto apps. It kind of has all the features you're looking for as far as composability, as far as like utility, as far as convexity, and as far as ROI. So really, the goal is for the long time horizon LP, giving them the best return possible. So being the absolute best app for the absolute best customers. So that's
without
like,
locking too, guys, I think that's the big deal here is, the norm right now is that you have to, if you want to get the best return, you have to lock. And that's sort of
that's
unhealthy.
strange.
Yeah. I'm down
Um,
bad on my locked assets. So
yeah. We saw the 4-year VE like at the very top of crypto, and we were scratching our chins. We were like, "Dude, is this a scam?" So we kind of went to the drawing board and we're like, you know, how can we make something that, you know, retail users can actually be safe in, and get returns. So, you know, that's like I guess the impetus behind Reliquary, and um, it is like, you know, really really good front end, really really good back end, really like mature code base. There just hasn't been a good reason to release tokens, or emit tokens in a while. So we've just been like iterating, trying to make a perfect app while we wait for the opportunity. And the opportunity is coming soon for us in that like all of our vertically integrated DeFi infrastructure is about to kind of settle into place. So, you know, we can actually fund incentives. So if we emit $1 incentives, we can generally get $1 of either revenue, $1 or more of ecosystem impact, which is what's really important to us.
Yeah, so that's
there's a
that.
great question in chat. Oh, sorry,
Oh man,
Stephen, you
there's
go ahead.
okay. I'll let you take over from the chat first.
Well, there was just a good question from Jack asking what underlying assets will be integrated. So could you maybe just let us know, what users could bring to the reliquary to start?
So we're for the most part we're going to be relying on single stake assets. So you know we're going where the most demand is in this market, and the most demand here is like people want to earn interest on their holdings without being exposed to market volatility or too much risk. So the era of 100% APR LP farming is behind us for now, unfortunately. So delta neutral positions that for whatever assets you're holding will be very valuable. So you know, we're working with Spooky Swap and Taro to make like an oath pool that we can support through Reliquary and Reaper. You know, and then of course your USDC, your ETH, your Bitcoin, all kind of the classics. If there's a Chainlink Oracle for it, or if it's on Taro, we can generally bubble it up into a supported asset. We're going to be very picky about what we add to the site because, you know, if you've been on Reaper, one of the main issues is there's like infinite choice. If you've ever been to like a restaurant that has 1,000 menu items, you're like paralyzed trying to figure out what the hell you're supposed to eat. So Reliquary is like we're trying to make a really precise application that addresses our users' needs without any. I mean, I guess there's fluff and that there's like a gamification layer, but it doesn't have like stuff they're not interested in. Everything they're doing is adding value to their portfolio.
And so where does the USDC go? So if I show up and I deposit USDC, just to be really plain.
Yeah, networks really like the answer to this one. So you deposit your USDC in Reliquary. That USDC is moved into Reaper, and that asset in Reaper is moved into probably a lending platform, wherever we can distribute those assets in a principal protected fashion. So, top to bottom liquidity is the most important thing, especially kind of in light of FTX, Celsius, et cetera. Kind of the big opportunity we see in DeFi is to fix all these problems with rehypothecation. We need to rename it because that's becoming such an ugly word. But um, being able to maximize users' ability to generate returns in kind of a limitless way that's principal protected, transparent, top to bottom, and isn't padding like some hedgies bottom line. Reaper, we're kind of known for, not taking many fees. And this vertical integration is what allows that. So we can have apps along the entire top to bottom and just like charge less fees than everyone else and just make the most user-friendly products possible. That's kind of our goal. And yeah, capital efficiency. And referring to what I was saying about networks liking it, you deposit $1 into Reliquary, you're getting $3 of TVL on your network and probably $4 or more of ecosystem impact. And once we get reliquary lending going, we're talking $5, $6. Really, the composability is endless. Um, so, it's kind of crazy mode. Um,
So is
and
that the major
and
benefit?
EV
Sorry, go ahead.
was just addressing EVA. Our delta neutral strategies are more risk off than RoboVault's, but RoboVault is dope. We may eventually do something like that, but we're kind of letting them vibe in their lane for now. But yeah, it's really like some lending, some folding, some leveraging, asset provision and optimization on Taro, Spooky Swap, things like that. So kind of a lot of what we do is how can we algorithmically allocate these assets to the most perfect spot as opposed to like how can we algorithmically manage a two-sided position, which poses a lot more risk and makes it much harder to protect the principal. But go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, yeah. Love the difference between RoboVault and what you guys are doing. One of my questions was, so like a user could right now go into Reaper as an example and enter one of the multi-strat vaults with USDC, and that's similar to what a USDC deposit in Reliquary would do. Is the major difference here the composability of the Reliquary like NFT positions, or is there another major benefit to Reliquary over a user sort of manually going into RoboVault or not RoboVault but Reaper and opening up their own USDC position?
Yeah, so what Reliquary allows us to do is it allows us to add a layer of incentivization, of gamification, and it allows us to narrow the UX of Reaper into something that is a much more convenient, easy to interact with, easy to understand package. So honestly, composability through Reaper is pretty easy because we mint every user RF tokens. The problem is infrastructure right now. Let's say we wanted to deposit those RF tokens into like Sushi Swap's MasterChef contract, which has been forked a million times. Those assets would just be lying. So the incentivization layer, the UX layer, the marketing layer that teams have built on top of their protocols is kind of a dead end. And what's cool about Reliquary is it isn't. And allows us as a protocol to save a lot of money on incentives because users are earning real yield underlying. So really what we can do is, we can take an extra 2-3% in oath and award it, across the top of a position. And like if a user is in the position for a year, they might be getting 5, 6, 7%, because they'll be, diluting the newer entrants. And really, it's like a lot of the research in DeFi and game theory and managing interest rates and convexity and all that is the idea that yield is always going to trend toward market rate, or yield is always going to revolve around market rate. And what Reliquary allows us to do is it allows us to add a little bit to the market rate. because Reaper is already providing a lot of that yield for the user underlying. So it gives us like a layer of competitiveness and a layer of really, really quality features and UX for the user, that kind of makes it like, in my opinion, a killer app. You know, seeing as MasterChef is probably the most interacted with set of contracts that isn't like Uniswap, period. Um, we basically improve like every single aspect of it. Eh, You know, I don't know if anybody plays like Magic the Gathering or whatever, but you talk about a strictly better, implementation or a strictly better card or a strictly better strategy. That's what Reliquary brings us, almost to like a 10x degree. So Reliquary, every single pain point you look at with farming, Reliquary solves it, and it does it without any downside apart from maybe some complexity for the developer. And that's what's cool about DeFi is it's so new. Damn, Google's trying to scam me. The cool thing about DeFi is it's so new that this stuff is possible. Like, if you go into social media, it's like you're spending 10 hours looking at a trade-off chart, trying to pick like, okay, what features do we need to prioritize? What screen space? What this, that, the other. But DeFi is so fresh, it's like, we're pioneers. So yeah, Reliquary is really dope. I'm sure probably a lot of you will eventually use it. Beethoven X is adopting it. I think once we're live and once we start socializing the smart contracts, a lot of teams will start to use it over MasterChef. So I think if you're all about DeFi in the next year, you'll probably be using the hell out of someone's implementation of our app. Um, but yeah,
That's a good point, Bebis,
very
because you
excited.
mentioned how we were going to be picky with, what assets are available, but that doesn't mean that someone else can't just fork Reliquary and support, whatever shitcoin is
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah, we
we'll see
made
what
it easy to
happens.
fork. Like it's a very mature code base, so someone can like, rip the repo and whip up their own version. And we invite them to do that. And probably eventually once we're cruising, once, we have, whatever market cap, we'll probably just give people grants to do that. And keep kind of pushing the limits of our tech. But yeah, you can build games on it. Like, we're going to be doing some really crazy stuff just to show off its power, but I think this is something that will take the efficiency of DeFi as a whole to new heights. And that's kind of our whole mission is like, how do we make this shit as dope as possible? And how do we make it efficient enough to compete with TradFi? I'm not going to get into the TradFi versus DeFi stats right now because that might depress some of you. But yeah, I'll kick it back to you, Stephen.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask a bunch of questions. However, we have so many questions coming in from the chat that I want to make sure those are gotten to first. So I'll let you guys pick the questions that you want to go through from those ones. And then after that, once we get through those, I will ask my questions.
Bird, you want to pick the questions, Samson? Where are the questions located?
So in the top right corner, you'll find the chat.
Oh, the
Um,
Dojo voice chat. Gotcha.
yes, yeah. And in there, I mean, we have
Um,
some basic questions to some more robust questions, like what is MasterChef? This is a question
yeah.
that probably a lot of people would want to know.
Yeah, MasterChef is an incentivization platform built by the Sushi Swap team that allows you to deposit tokens and earn tokens for depositing. So it's like really rudimentary um, bond infrastructure. So the kind of TradFi equivalent would be, corporate bonds. You deposit your LP or you deposit, whatever asset. Um, they want you to deposit and they will issue you an interest rate. So when you see on a website, deposit this token and receive 1,000% APR, that's probably MasterChef. It's the most used set of contracts in DeFi. And what we're doing is we're uh, taking kind of the idea being bonding infrastructure and making it infinite, basically. So we have, we've upped the composability by an order of magnitude. We're going really crazy with the features for both developers and users. So yeah, it just give when you see big number and then percent after on a DeFi website, that's MasterChef in action. Um, But yeah, you can also Google it. That's a classic maneuver.
And we also got an answer in the chat too, so that was really cool. We have people answering people. Okay, so one of the other
The
ones was a new investor has $100 and enters the Byte Mason ecosystem. I imagine they're speaking about Reliquary because that's the one that sort of feeds into the other
Yeah,
ones. Can you take us on a trip through the
yeah.
products that their initial investment would put to work? And let's say like in an idealized system. So I think Reaper is the endpoint, but what else might be happening there?
Yeah, no, I mean, with $100, the whole point of a lot of the work we're doing at this top layer is to make it as easy as possible. So really, as far as users are concerned, if they have $100 in USDC, they just click one button, and now they're earning best in class yield on that $100. That's kind of the point of Reliquary. And then, we have some stuff. I don't want to like, share too many details, but Reliquary for people that have $100, for the $100 guys, for the $10 guys, Reliquary is really cool because it kind of gives you a way to become advantaged, where your balance sheet might not be able to compete with the big dogs. You can input your time and energy and input kind of your willingness to have longevity there, and earn greater returns in some cases, at least in terms of percentages. So really to that user, I would suggest, you go on the Reliquary website, you go through the tutorial and you click the deposit button at the end of the tutorial. Um, and then that should be about problem solved for you. I mean, let's say an idealized system, let's say this person has $100 and they've never touched DeFi. And they want the absolute best yield on their money, period, uh, forever. Okay. So at that point, I would say you go on Reliquary, you click on create account. All right. Our integrated Moon wallet has you create a Google Passkey. So in one click, you essentially have the strength of security of 2FA. And what Moon does is it creates a wallet abstraction for you. So we have super secure hardware tech through HashiCorp called HashiCorp Vaults, where we're able to act as a signer on your behalf without having any access to your keys or anything like that. So you as a user can now onboard as easily as you do to Facebook with probably better security than you'd get from MetaMask. Okay, now you're onboarded. Great. You have your $100. What do you do with that? So Ethos Reserve is a platform that uses its proprietary actively managed CDP vaults um, to earn interest on CDP assets and mint a stablecoin called EUSD. That asset EUSD exposes you to Bitcoin volatility. It exposes you to ETH volatility, Bitcoin and ETH yield, and Bitcoin and ETH price action, all while you hold a stable coin. Um, so you go into Reliquary, you see, oh wow, this EUSD stablecoin is pretty dope. And then in one click, now you've one click made your wallet and onboarded, great. Now you one click we swap your USDC automatically to Reaper EUSD. So this is an asset that actively manages your EUSD, and it essentially has like a very, very competitive interest rate because it's built on the best stablecoin tech in the industry, bar none, Ethos Reserve. Okay, now you're building on that, and then boom, in 2 clicks, you're earning the absolute best yield with the longest time horizons that you will find anywhere in DeFi, bar none. And no team can deliver that besides ours because we have 16 senior ETH engineers, and we're building in every single vertical. So only through the power of all of this integration can we deliver that value to the end user. And this is a value that nobody can do because people build their one like primitive layer or their one abstraction, and then they get $5 million of VC funding, and then they retire after building nothing. um, of course that's like an exaggeration, but um, you know a cool thing about us is are like we want to solve DeFi. And when you work with us, I would say you're working with some of the best engineers in the industry. So that's our goal is just infinite time horizon, highly competitive, interest-bearing assets, and lending and other kind of primitives like that. We don't mess with dexes. but pretty much anything else is on the table. So long way to say, I would have the user click once to make their own account through Moon, and then I would have them click once to enter a Reaper EUSD uh, managed vault position, and then they'll be on gangster mode, and they don't even need to know anything that's going on. They're just chilling, uh, and then they can probably click on documentation or read articles if they get curious and figure out what the hell is going on underlying. But the goal here is to make products for consumers. We don't develop products so that 20 developers can scratch their chins at them. We develop products so that users can take advantage of this tech as easily as possible. um, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. I am long-winded. I always wait to warn you until like halfway
Classic
through
Bebis.
whatever I'm
Yeah, I've
doing.
also shared a diagram which shows sort of how $100 of TVL can turn into multiple hundreds of dollars, mainly through, if you deposit through Reliquary, the assets don't sit in Reliquary, they're sitting in a Reaper vault, which then may lend it out to Granary. So that $1 is getting counted multiple times. So that's where that
Yeah,
number is coming from. Thanks,
yeah, it
Bebis.
is. This is kind of like when we approach foundations and networks, we're kind of like, hey, do you want to support us? Here's what happens if you support us. We're bringing an order of magnitude more efficiency. We're, going crazy mode on your network. And really all we want to do is reward your users efficiently and apply our research because we're nerds. Really like this is all about trying to like make better software and make users happier and um, you know eh, finance like TradFi sucks and I don't need to get into it, but we're here to make everybody's lives easier uh, and more rewarding if possible. I think that goes beyond money though, so don't come to me for, well, you can come to me for life advice, but keep it concise.
Okay, so I'm going to step in and ask a question. You said something really interesting earlier on where you said something to the tune of for every $1 emitted in Oath, you would be able to generate about $1 in like revenue or platform fees. Uh, that seems really interesting because that sort of solves the problem of one of the problems of DeFi, right? One of the fundamental problems where everywhere you see tokens being emitted left and right, not at the same rate of revenue being brought into the ecosystem, especially not at the same rate as revenue going into that particular token or buying back and burning it. So, can you walk us through
Yeah.
the Oath tokenomics and sort of how you're able to do that?
Yeah, let me use Ethos Reserve as an example because it's kind of the purest example. It's like literally our research and our tech applied in the absolute like most gangster way. Um, in fact, here I'll open up like uh, ba, 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 ba. Opening documents, the fun thing you signed up to watch me do. Okay, so Ethos Reserve. I hope you can see this. I think you can.
Yes.
Yeah. All
Working
right.
good. Yep.
Um, so Ethos Reserve is cool because, and all of our tech is cool, I guess, um, because it can uh, generate yield. I hope there's no crazy alpha. So um, it can uh, it can generate enough interest or enough revenue to uh, pay for its yield and then some. So it can pay for its yield and then any excess can go toward growth. And the nice thing about being like, we're a foundation and we're like a serious foundation. So we're a nonprofit, like we exist to make DeFi as gangster as possible. And if you don't agree with my colloquialisms, you can, change the word gangster for like good or effective or efficient. But so what Ethos Reserve is able to do is it's able to take all these assets sitting in CDP. So imagine if MakerDAO could take all of their underlying TVL and farm with it. Dope. Okay, cool. The nice thing that makes our research so applicable now is Ethereum is defining a risk-free rate at 4% APR, which is about 5.5% APY. And what we're going to see over the next 6 months plus is a lot of assets being created on top of that. So Steth is the first one. It's the most obvious one. Okay, great. Here's, a bond. Go have fun. Um, but we're going to see a
Hey,
lot
stand
of
up.
assets created. What was that? Oh, we're going to be seeing a lot of assets created to take advantage of that yield beyond just ETH or STETH or whatever. We're going to see a lot of cool derivatives. We're going to see a lot of ways to access that yield. And yield in DeFi is going to get a lot more scalable, a lot faster. And the thing about us and our risk profile is, you know, because principal protection is a high priority, really all we care about is 1 or 2% APR. And, you know, Ethos Reserve is a system. You deposit these assets, you mint a stable coin. Awesome. Now, what can you do with that stable coin? Well, you can take advantage of all of this interest being generated by the system being diverted to that stable coin's kind of staking or bonding primitive. So it's super duper cool. Here's an example is, let's say we have $10 million of TVL. Now, Ethos Reserve is a stable coin that only accepts Bitcoin and ETH. The whole point is it's uncensorable. You know, the CIA is not going to yank it out of your pocket or whatever. But, you know, going beyond that, I think that's more of an optimization than like a 10x innovation. Um, you know, $10 million of TVL goes into this system. Okay, great. Uh, that $10 million of TVL, let's say we're managing 60% of those assets. And again, because like this is native asset management, we can manage risk block by block. And that's what's really cool about our systems, which, you know, some of which are proprietary, is it's not like staking, you know, a Reaper receipt token and minting a stable coin, because the underlying system is able to adapt every single block to market environments and to context. And that's why this is important, and that's why it matters. Because you're not taking on the crazy long tail risk of these weird derivatives. You are being managed, or your position is being managed by something that can actually like create an off risk environment. So we can, I think scaling is too big a conversation for this, but you deposit 10 million TVL. Let's say we can generate $300,000 a year off that 10 million TVL. All right. So $300,000 a year can support $15 million of TVL at 6% API or APY. And now, again, this is kind of getting a little into the nitty gritty, but $15 million of our stablecoin collateralized at an average of 200% would mean we can support an additional $30 million of TVL and keep this cycle going practically infinitely. I mean, the barriers to scaling are time and liquidity. So, you know, interest rates are going to stagnate as you reach kind of liquidity ceilings or risk ceilings or anything like that. But what Ethos will always be is the industry leader in yield delivery. And the reason for that is because we're making 10 to 15 times more money than anyone else. And we're dumping all of that money back to users and back to borrowers, which is why DeFi is so crazy, because this is a system built to be totally self-contained. You know, sure, we need a couple guys to manage the vaults, but you know, a lot of the risk management we do is programmatic, algorithmic. A lot of the risk we're taking on is very simple. So imagine buying a treasury bond. You know, it's not like we need to update state constantly. It's really that we're trying to expose with as little risk as possible ourselves to, say, for example, the 4% ETH interest rate. And of course, like, you know, once you get into tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars AUM, things get a little more complicated. You need market making strategies. You need option strategies. You know, you need junior vaults, senior vaults, ways to diversify risk and diversify exposures to risk. Because at scale, when you're managing $100 billion, even the smallest bit of risk in an asset or in a position, even if it's denominated in the same position, or even if it's principal protected, you know, it, at $100 billion scale, a 0.01% little, you know, tiny crumb of risk can have like millions of dollars of impact on the balance sheet. So that's why, you know, diversity and scaling really efficiently and hedging strategies become important, even if it is all denominated in the same asset and it's principal protected. So I think I'm kind of getting a little too into the weeds here, but Ethos is dope. You know, the ways we scale are really dope. Where's Lucid? Like here's an example of our asset management system at work. This is for the sake of Granary. Granary is like another conversation. I'm going to be freaking keeping you guys here for 100 hours. Um, read my Medium, medium.com/oxbebis. The Getting Granular article will fill you in. But essentially, kind of the final form of our architecture, think of it kind of like a Merkle tree if you're into cryptography, or really like even like a tree showing parentage. If every single child is reporting risk parameters to its parent, and its parent is adjusting risk parameters for the child's children in response and reallocating resources in response, these two systems, and Ethos would be on the left here, can scale essentially to infinity as long as liquidity and risk would allow it, and interest rates. So that's what's really cool about this system. And Reaper as an app, we can even divert a bunch of yield to Reaper so that Reaper users get a lot more assets in exchange for protecting the senior asset management vault. So uh, yeah, it's really dope. There's like literally an insane amount of research that goes into this. So, talking to you guys, you're probably going to get like headaches, tension headaches or whatever.
Uh, this can be a video watched multiple times, so luckily this will be recorded and uploaded. One thing I want to ask is, I mean, we're going to run out of time, which is unfortunate. But one of the things that I think it's on a lot of people's minds due to the recent events is rehypothecation has become a bad word because of
Yeah.
FTX. And I've noticed you haven't been saying it, and I really appreciate that. The way you've been explaining it has been really sort of straightforward for the average user. So one of the questions was trading with user deposits sounds like FTX. Can you explain how what you guys are doing is different, similar, or completely unrelated to what FTX did, and how rehypothecation in your system may have a different risk profile?
Yeah, totally. So, what we're doing with, I hate to say rehypothecation because all these freaking bastards in TradFi ruined it. But really, like all of these assets are being deposited into like asset strategies. So we're never going to move your asset into a position that isn't denominated in that asset. So that would be way outside of our risk profile. That would be crazy mode. And there are a lot of ways to achieve principal protected delta neutral strategies without doing that. So what we're doing shouldn't be seen as similar to FTX or similar to Celsius. It should be seen as DeFi solution to the problems FTX and Celsius kind of rammed their heads into a wall, trying to perform. So, where Alameda is taking Celsius user deposits and, yeeting them into shit coins, our asset management vaults are, for example, taking your ETH and trying to find an efficient way to expose it to staked ETH and earn a couple percent APR for you. So really, it's like the full total transparency, top to bottom. The ability to programmatically ensure that assets can be drawn down to zero or withdrawals. Can be facilitated up to 100% bandwidth. That's what makes DeFi special. Is it's not like some dude in his underpants trying to like steer up enough bank accounts, and figure out whether people can deposit on any given day. It's smart contracts taking on your money and creating agreements with other smart contracts to generate you interest. And it's not like, we're not taking that interest and putting it in our butts or whatever, buying sex mansions. I don't know what FTX did. But this is why DeFi is so cool. It's because like we can programmatically, totally transparently take this cash in a way that's competitive with any firm. We can do it with a really lean engineering team, and we can put it right back in your pocket. And I think that's the narrative that's going to take DeFi to the extreme. Is we are the solution to shadow banking, to dark pools, to rehypothecation, in the way that TradFi has used and abused them, or used and abused these strategies. We see our savings rates fall from 1% to 0.1% to 0.01%, and it's literally insane. But I digress. That's kind of that's the reason that we're building, is so that what's happening with FTX and what's happening with all these bastards doesn't have to be the status quo. It doesn't have to be the industry standard. It doesn't have to be, what you need to do to survive. It becomes a benefit to you. So finance and the financial system isn't a rat race anymore. It isn't average everyday users who don't have access to funds trying to race inflation, because if you don't, you're just absolutely boned. It's normal people working together and trying to create financial primitives to secure their futures and secure their retirement in a way that, isn't dependent on some hedge fund guy pocketing, 3% management fees and 30% performance fees on your 401k. Like, it's ridiculous. And that, I guess, is why we're here. And I think that's why all of you are here. And the reason we work so hard to, be compliant, the reason we have these foundations, and the reason we try to, we work long ass hours for honestly not that much money trying to make this stuff work, is because we're really believers in this technology. And we think our solutions are going to be the solutions that take people into the next decade, financially. And this is infrastructure that nobody else is working to the degree that we're working on it. And we've been working hard on it for, 2 years now, coming out of stealth. I guess, it's an honor to be in the DeFi dojo talking about it now. We've been heads down for so long, but I hope you guys hear more and more of us, and I hope you guys, talk to your friends about us. We're going to have prettier websites and things. We're working on that so that people aren't like, oh, dude, Reaper.farm. It
You put
looks
your money
like,
in that?
yeah. But yeah, it's a work in progress, and yeah, I hope you all join us along the journey.
Oh man, I
Thank
wish
you, Stephen.
wish we had more time, because we are down to like 4 minutes. We have so many questions, and I would love to follow up with more questions on that. So Samson, if there are any questions specifically that you want to get asked, by the way, guys, don't think just because you posted a question they will not be addressed or thought of. I will work with the Byte Masons to make sure all the questions are answered either in a Twitter thread or something similar to that, and the questions will still be picked based off of how good they were, not just off the ones that were verbally answered. Samson, are there any that you wanted to get addressed in the last 3 minutes?
Oh, last 3 minutes. Look, I mean, I feel like there's been some really great questions, especially surrounding, how the tokens play into this that need to be circled back to. So definitely need to find an opportunity to expand on all this with you more, Stephen.
Revenue buys back tokens. Tokens get emitted back to users. It's a positive sum system because LPs get a fee. So even if every single person in the whole world dumps, because we're buying back our tokens, it's still positive sum. So LPs will always be kind of winning that trade. And that's the whole point. Aave released, Aave emitted $360 million of tokens in 2021 and earned less than $30 million in revenue. Um, that's the story. So yeah, the tokens are just like, super high volume, super high buy pressure, really like, lovely, governance tokens and ways for you to participate in the ecosystem. And I'm not really going to say a lot because the SEC has snipers trained at me at all times. But yeah, it's a
Yeah, I
way for
wasn't
you to
sure if you could do
engage
that
with our
under 3 minutes,
ecosystem
but that's great, Bebis.
and secure our growth. Yeah, positive sum, tokens dope. We know what we're doing. Long story
I
short.
posted some more diagrams in the chat as well, so
Yeah,
you can take a look at that.
I think what would be cool is Gonzalo, who's in the audience, who manages our social media. The questions I think will give him firepower probably for weeks, for tweets and stuff. So definitely, like, we'll try to address everything.
Okay, so we have in the last minute. I'm going to say I believe I've added as many Byte Masons as possible as builders in the DeFi dojo. So you guys all now have full access. Most of you, many of you have had full access for a long time, but I see Gons, I think, was one of the new ones. So happy to add you. I want to continue this conversation in some capacity, whether it be a Twitter Spaces or maybe one of those StreamYard things, which I really have to get used to. Thanks for pointing that out that I have to do that. But there's clearly a lot more content to unpack, and I do believe my community is particularly interested in this. You guys guys are building, you're going to call them the most robust products in all of DeFi. I will say them arguably the most robust products in all of DeFi because, I'm not allowed to have that much conviction. But man, you do know how to get the people excited. So
Yeah, I feel like we're only scratching the surface too, Stephen. I mean, we didn't
that's
even
right.
really get to, so we didn't even
Easy
talk about
6 hours.
Granary, really
Dude,
much.
the problem is like I wanted to be an engineer and they made me CEO, so now I have to talk about stuff and it's like the most autistic thing ever. But yeah, it's like, anytime you want me on, anytime your people want me on, we can make this a 10-part or whatever. It's like this is my life, and it'll be my life for a long time. So um, just say the word. I'm infinitely available. I'm always just sitting in my chair until my girlfriend yanks me out. So yeah, it's a pleasure always.
Thank you. I think this time the pleasure was all ours. So thank you so much for coming on and for doing that exploit on Discord so we could see your face and wonderful office. It definitely adds to the entire experience, and I believe that the viewers will genuinely appreciate that. So that was
Yeah,
super
it took me
cool.
a while to set this up. So
It was really good.
symmetry, plant. It's very. I did it on purpose for the Block Bites podcast. So
Well, it definitely works. So that's going to be it for us, guys. We're going to follow up. We're going to have more content specifically on all of this stuff that Byte Masons are doing because I know there are at least a handful of you out there who are more interested, if not as interested as me. I said that backwards, but again, thank you. You're more than welcome to be here anytime in the DeFi Dojo, and we look forward to hearing from you more.
yeah, love your guys' content. You Danku, freaking dope. So keep it up. Vital to the ecosystem. And I hope all your viewers enjoy. You can check me out on Across the Chains from Block Bytes YouTube every week. Maybe not this week because I'll be in the desert celebrating Thanksgiving. But yeah, I kind of just rugged your finale.
It's okay.
You can finish.
Well, rugging with you rugged and you then promoted Donkey at the same time. I mean, luckily he's a friend and I love him and he's fantastic. So that will be it. Thank you so much. This was wonderful and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much for
guys.
your time, everybody.
Appreciate it. Have a good holidays as well, everyone.
Oh
Bye.
yeah. Take care. Bye.